have genuinely been spiraling for so long about this that I have not even bothered to brush my hair to tell you what I'm annoyed about. Hello, unless you're new on BookTube, I don't have to explain to you that one of this year's most anticipated releases is Carrie, Soto is Back by Queen Taylor Jenkins Reid, who has ruled BookTube with an iron fist ever since The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo came out, and you know what? Fair play to her. It's a great book, I enjoyed it very much, 5 stars. So naturally, as a Taylor Jenkins Reid fan, I had Carrie Soto is Back on pre-order at Waterstones, and I was going to do a little reading vlog. Haven't read it yet, by the way. I should preface that this anger has got nothing to do with the actual content or quality of the book. I'm just being stupid. So, I have the book, and I was going to start this little reading vlog with a cute little, like, unboxing to, like, open it up and a little reaction. But you know what? I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait because I'm an impatient person. So when I got home, like, in the middle of the night last night, that makes it sound like I was, like, clubbing. I wasn't. I was just at, like, a late cinema screening. Living life. So I got back and I was like, oh, I could save opening it for, you know, the video, but, like, I kind of just want to open it and I might start reading it tonight. I didn't start reading it that night because I was so angry I just couldn't face it. So I opened it and she's here. And as I was sort of looking at it, I was like, oh, seems a bit big. And then I was like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, it's just book sized. But I was like, oh, seems a bit big. Thus planting the seed in my head, the horror that it might not be the same size as the other hardbacks. And it isn't. I literally, like, you know, it was like 2:30 a.m. or something, and I shot up out of bed like I'd just been shocked by lightning or something, ran to my shelf and, like, held this up next to my hardback of Daisy Jones and my hardback of Malibu Rising, and literally mouth dropped when I realised it was like a good 2 inches taller or something. Why? And I've checked, it's not a different publisher. It's not a different it's the same publisher. It's the same bloody publisher. Why? Because I was literally thinking about how to clear a space on my shelf so they could all be together. Do you know what? They all can't be together because the other two that are smaller fit on my smaller hardback shelf, and Carrie's fucking massive can only fit on my shelf for big hardback, so they're not gonna be together, and this is really upsetting me, and I'm so sorry that this is such an unhinged way to start a reading vlog, but I am upset. I am upset. I am just a girl standing in front of UK publishers asking for a book collection that doesn't look like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Let me explain. So we have Carrie Soto is Back, then we have Malibu Rising, clock the difference there. Then we have Daisy Jones. Oh great, it's the same size, so at least they bloody match. So we've got Daisy, Malibu Rising, clock the difference. And then we have the US edition of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, because I read Seven Husbands before it was, like, published in the UK paperback format. So again, clock the difference. And then we have the 2 UK trade paperback sizes for One True Loves and Maybe Another Life. Again, clock the difference. It's like a set of bloody stairs. What is that? It's literally a staircase. That is not a collection of books all by the same author. That is a staircase. That is a Lego build your own Leaning Tower of bloody Pisa. I wish I could be one of those booktube girlies that's like, oh, I don't care what a book looks like. I just care about the story and the content. But I'm not. I'm not, and I'm especially angry because there's no bloody reason for it. Because Malibu Rising was her most recent release before this one, and then Daisy Jones was her most recent release after that one. Why change the formula? Like, you've got the rights to her work, you're releasing it in hardback, you've got the rights to her upcoming novel. Why have you changed the size? Why have you done that? And I'm not gonna lie, it has undermined my excitement to read it a little bit. So I don't really know where that leaves us for this reading vlog. I mean, I want to start it soon. I will start it soon. But I just had to register my outrage first. And yeah, that's it. Happy reading to me. Well, a lot has happened in like the 12, 15 hours, more than that, probably like 20 hours since I did my like intro to this video, which was a little bit of a rant. Embarrassing that I'm still wearing the same jumper, but oh well. God, so about last night at about 1 a.m, I was on the phone to my friend B, and then all my power just went out, like every light, the Wi-Fi gone, like no power in the plug socket. Oh, you know what a power cut is, I don't know why I'm explaining it. But I had about 30% of battery on my phone at this point, and I didn't know when the power was going to return. So I like rushedly like grabbed all my things together and went over to my mum's because she still had power, thankfully. She only lives about like 5-10 minutes away. So yeah, literally in the middle of the night, like dark by phone light, I was getting my stuff together. I had to put on my big rain mat because it was like raining in the middle of the night. All of the street lights had gone out as well, so it was a good fun old time. And obviously by the time I got to my mum's, I was like wide awake. So I read a bunch of Carrie Soto. I'm literally like so far into it now. I'm on page 271. And then anyway, this morning at like 7 a.m, my dad phoned me because he's travelling back from a business trip, and I was like, oh, because I texted him about the power situation, and he was like, oh, if the power went out and it tripped the fuse box, then the power might not have come back on when the power came back on, and the freezer might defrost or like run back and like switch the thing on the fuse if it's not done it, and blah 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 blah. So then I've done that and I'm back, it's all fine now, I didn't have to do the fuse box. But basically, long story short, is that I'm quite sleepy. I've had quite a disrupted evening of sleep, and I'm about to try and read some Carrie Soto to like make my eyes tired to help me go back to sleep to get a couple of hours. But before I read more, I was gonna do a little update, and that was my long ramble. I'm gonna do an update about the actual content of the book now that I'm like literally like nearly finished. I'm 271 pages in, and it's good. It is good. So I historically am not a very sporty person, so initially when this was announced and the premise and everything about it being like a sports star, a tennis star coming out of retirement to like reclaim her title, I was a bit like, oh, like I don't know if this is the one for me. Like obviously Evelyn Hugo was about films and Hollywood, and I'm like right there interested in that. Daisy Jones, again, the music industry scene, inspired by Fleetwood Mac, right in there with my interests. Malibu Rising, less so, just because, I mean, she was like a surfer, again, sports, not my thing. But again, that was still kind of about fame and like family. So like I was interested in that, but like it didn't hit in the same way that the other two did. And so this one I was a bit like, and especially because Carrie Soto was a character that had been mentioned in Malibu Rising, I was like, oh, I don't really know if I like care that much. Spoiler alert, I do care. It's very good. So Carrie Soto is very much this like Serena Williams figure when we meet her. Like she's got like the most Grand Slam titles of anyone in women's tennis. Like she's broken lots of world records. She's also got a bit of reputation for being very ambitious and a bit cutthroat, like not being very like gracious to her other players and being very competitive and like, you know, being a bit ice cold. And she's got a nickname like the Battle Axe. I definitely think that Taylor Jenkins Reid has taken some inspiration obviously from Serena Williams, except this is set in the 90s, so it's like a different generation. So when we first meet Carrie, she's 37 and she's been retired for 5 years, and there's like a new up and coming tennis star who's now matched Carrie's like record for how many Grand Slam titles, and if that person wins one more will break Carrie's record. And so that sort of starts the gears turning in her head about whether or not she wants to come out of retirement and like reclaim her title. Spoiler alert, she does, otherwise there would be no book to talk about. And so then begins like all of the training. And so when she was a kid, she was trained by her dad. Again, another parallel between Carrie Soto and Serena Williams, because Serena and Venus were also trained by their dad when they were very young, and he very much believed and pushed them. And there's a lot of controversy around like whether he pushed them too hard and whether like he stepped away from his role as a father to like become their coach, and that is a little bit explored in Carrie Soto as well. And there's even a point in her career that, you know, she leaves her father and goes to a different coach, and about how that affects their relationship. And then when she's retraining to do her comeback, she's training again with her father, and she hasn't done so in years. And so that's really, really interesting. And I'm really enjoying all of the build up and like the different tournaments and like the little details about like the difference on playing on like grass and playing on clay, which like doesn't sound that interesting. Like, I'm not a sports person, but to be honest, if there was one sport that was gonna get me interested in sport, it might be tennis, because I have been known to cheer on Andy Murray and get like a little bit too enthusiastic during like his Wimbledon years when he was like getting to the finals and stuff. Like, we are a very Scottish household, so Andy Murray was like the only person that made us give a shit about Wimbledon, which is always funny because, you know, Andy Murray, like, he was British when he won but Scottish if he lost, so we were there with him no matter what, you know, like that was what we always like to do. And I remember one particular time when he actually won Wimbledon. It was during like a get together we were having with friends, and like we actually nearly burnt down the kitchen because we just got distracted by watching the tennis, and we just forgot something was on the cooker and it had burnt and it was about to catch fire. So yeah, not gonna lie, I was really enjoying all of the like tennis lingo, and I didn't think that I would be, and it does explain that for people who haven't watched tennis before, like how all the rules work and everything. But it's just very, very fast paced, obviously like a game of tennis is, but the way it's written is like short, snappy, and you can really picture it, you know, it's like very visual. I'm really enjoying how it's written. I'm really enjoying Carrie as a character, as somebody who's like ambitious and unapologetically so, almost to a fault. Like, you can see that she basically wants to win so much that she's just not letting herself be happy. Like, she can't just simply retire and be proud that she set this world record and like, job done, I was the greatest tennis player in the world. She's like, if I'm not still the greatest tennis player in the world at 37, then I'm not the greatest, and therefore I failed, and like nothing else matters. And obviously that's really stupid. Like, you know, just because someone else can match your achievement doesn't mean that like what you did wasn't impressive at the time that you did it. But she just can't see that. She thinks that if someone breaks her record, it means that she's a complete failure and it was all for nothing. So she has this almost like hubris, and she says that a lot in the novel when she basically realizes that her body isn't what it used to be, and she's now really like, oh god, am I tarnishing my legacy by coming back and not playing at my best? So there's a lot of really interesting ideas there about like success and what that means, because I think as well, like, I'm a bit like Carrie in the sense that I have like very high ambitions, but I just don't have the same work ethic. At least I can admit it. But like, I was a bit like, oh god, because I really recognised a lot of what she was talking about when she's like reaching all of these goals and then it's never enough and it doesn't really feel enjoyable. She's just setting herself a next goal and a next goal and a next goal. And so she's never like fully satisfied, and that's something that I worry about in my life like all the time. Like, I'm very ambitious to the point where like I will dream very unlikely scenarios for myself, and I can picture myself getting there, but just the work ethic it takes to get to that point, I just don't know if I have that. And then if I don't achieve that thing, I'm like, oh my god, what am I going to do with my life? Anyway, a bit personal there, but I am really relating to a lot of that about like how you define success, how you also live a life alongside that, and be okay if you don't meet your career goals, right? Because like tennis is like her entire life, and I've often said like while pursuing film, like if I can't do film, there's like nothing else I want to do. Like, if I don't make that work in my life, like it's useless. Like, there's nothing else that I want. I'm not going to be happy if I don't make this career work, which is silly because I know in theory like I just still lead a happy life even if my career isn't what I want it to be. But it's easier said than done. So I am really like, it's hitting home for me, even though like I'm not a sporty person in any way, shape or form. But I'm very much enjoying it, and I really enjoy being in Carrie's head, and I'm really excited to see how this ends. Like, if she reclaims her title and if it's everything that she wants it to be and more, or if she loses, which I think I'm leaning more towards that's probably what's going to happen, and she then has this big realization about how shallow and how meaningless it was to strive for this title, and she should have been like striving for like fulfillment in herself. But I'm really enjoying it, in case you couldn't tell by that long ramble I just did, and I'm excited to finish it, and I guess I will give you an update when I have finished. I finished it. You know, in the previous clip of this vlog where I was like, oh, I'm so tired because of the disjointed night of sleep that I had, so I'm just gonna read some Carrie Soto and like it might make my eyes tired and I can get some rest and then finish it at a later date. No, I just read it all. I just finished it and I didn't get any sleep and I'm tired. So I'm ready to discuss my final thoughts, and spoiler alert if you can't be bothered to watch the entirety of this video, I really liked the book. I thought it was great. On the surface it's really not a story that would appeal to me, and I think the arc in any other writer's hands would have felt a little bit cliched, maybe a little bit clumsy, because essentially we're following a tennis star who's coming out of retirement to reclaim her record, reclaim and defend her like total number of Grand Slams that she's won in her life. So it's all about her, you know, pushing herself, pushing her body, challenging expectations that people have of, I was going to say elderly women, she's like 37, but like older women in sport, and really defying those limitations that people are placing on her and challenging herself and pushing herself, realising what she's capable of, but then also having a realisation that potentially success and winning isn't everything, and that there are other things in life that can bring her the same level of joy and satisfaction. Like, how do you even measure success? Is it how many records she's broken? Is it how many people she's inspired? Is it how many medals she's got? Is it how many weeks she was at #1? Like, how do you actually quantify that success? Because that's almost what has kept her going all of these years, is that she always has something else to aim for, and now that those options are kind of running out, Carrie feels like she has nothing really to show for her life, which is obviously not true, but it's just that twisted mindset that you get into when you're just striving, and then you've got nothing left. And I think that very simple core message of like winning isn't everything, again, like I said, would have felt quite clumsy in another person's hands, but just the way that Taylor Jenkins Reid writes just makes it feel so electric and refreshing and engaging. I said at the top of this vlog that I wasn't a very sporty person, and I'm still not. I have never in my life enjoyed a day in PE in school. I don't do a lot of exercise. I just don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy the feeling of being sweaty and out of breath. But in the passages where you know, Taylor Jenkins Reid is writing about the way that Carrie's body wakes up, the way that her body responds to the ball and the racket and the vibrations, and the way that she's anticipating, the way that she moves, the way that she pushes herself to like exceed her past performance, the way that she feels at the peak of her health, and the way that she trusts in her body and she feels that electricity and that hum. It almost made me like want to go out and like do some sport, which is unheard of, like unheard of. Do you know how good of a writer you have to be to make me want to go out and do some sport? I was quite impressed. And it's just such a comfortable world to be in. In the writer's note at the end, Taylor Jenkins Reid talked a little bit about all of the research that she'd done for this book, so that she'd bought the masterclass that Serena Williams did on that masterclass website. She'd watched Borg v McEnroe, which is another like famous tennis rivalry, because obviously in this book Carrie has a rivalry with Nikki Chan. That's the person that she's trying to defend her title against. And so she did a lot of research into like tennis and technique, and there are little bits in between each chapter of the book where we're following like a transcript from like a sports caster broadcast. So like, I mean, it could either be a podcast or it could be like commentators during or before a match. So she really has that tone nailed down of like what sports people look for, and like the various things that they talk about, and the various things that they're looking for like in the lead up and in the aftermath of the matches. And even with my very rudimentary past of watching the odd Wimbledon when Andy Murray is playing, like I really felt like she'd nailed that tone of like how they speak and what they look for, and it really felt like such a lived in world. I mean, I remember when I read Evelyn Hugo and I felt like, oh my god, Taylor Jenkins Reid knows so much about the golden age of Hollywood and the movies. And then when I read Daisy Jones and the Six, I felt, oh, she knows so much about 70s rock and like music and bands and how to write a song. And in this I was like, oh, she knows so much about tennis and technique and all of the like terms that you need to know, and like every single world of hers feels so tangible and lived in. And obviously that's because she does so much research, right? It's not just a knowledge that she's born with, but it's just really impressive. And every time I open one of her books I just feel immediately so comforted that I'm in the hands of someone that knows exactly what they're doing. And oh, I just enjoyed it so much. And like I said, the sort of main driving structure of the book is Carrie preparing for these matches, preparing for these slams to like win back her title, but obviously alongside that there's a sort of, it's not really a subplot because it's quite a main bit of the novel, but her dad is training her, and it's the first time that they've worked together since her retirement, and it's about them sort of building back their relationship as well. And I really love that dichotomy of like father and coach. Again, it's something that I really enjoyed watching in the King Richard movie, which is about how Serena and Venus's father trained them, and how he pushed them to be like what they were going to be in that difficult relationship of like, when do you be a father and when do you be a coach. And there's actually a really lovely bit in Taylor Jenkins Reid's author's note at the end where she talks about her daughter and about being like a parent, and that was something I didn't really think about, because obviously the main character that you're following is Carrie Soto. It's not from the point of view of her dad, but a lot of that plotline I think was influenced by obviously how Taylor feels about her own child. But it was really, really nice what she wrote. I'm trying to find it now. Okay, I was wrong. It wasn't in her author's note, it was in the acknowledgements, and she's written, "And lastly to Lila, you've heard me talk about Carrie Soto for a while now. You've patiently listened to me try to figure her out, and you had a very good idea for the title of this book, which I almost used. So I don't know, maybe you're a writer, but let me tell you something. You are capable of so many things. I hope as you grow older that this gives you a sense of peace. I, for so much of my life, have had something to prove, but I think you have a real chance of knowing you don't have to prove a single thing to anyone. If it should come to pass that you feel the need to do something big, to go be the greatest there ever was, I will stand by you for that journey. I will be there cheering you on for anything you go out there and do. But just know that to me, you showed up perfect. You don't have to prove a single thing." And that gorgeous sentiment is really apparent in the relationship between Carrie and her father in this book, and that was an element of the story that I really enjoyed reading about, and it just helped the ending sort of be more of a gut punch than maybe I anticipated that it would be. And I guess my final thought is, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but just Taylor Jenkins Reid writing a story about a sort of famous figure who has achieved like great heights of success, and then trying to come back and prove that like she's different and she's older, but she's still capable of something beautiful, of something impressive. I don't know, it's sort of, I'm potentially reading too much into it, but like everyone always cites The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo as Taylor Jenkins' peak as a writer, right? And I'm guilty of that as well. You know, every book that has come out after that, I feel like, oh, it's not as good as Evelyn. And I think that's because Evelyn is just primed for me as a film fan, as a film fanatic, as a cinephile. So I am guilty of that as well. And I wonder if maybe the reason that this book to me felt so authentic and engaging is because maybe Taylor's going through that herself. She's almost trying to show that she has something more to prove, that she's not just the writer of Evelyn, that's not where she's peaked. She has more to offer, she has something else to give, and maybe that's why this felt so raw and immediate. I don't know, potentially that's just me doing a bit of a reach, I don't know, but it felt a bit more enveloping than Malibu Rising did for me, and I really felt like maybe she was writing this with something to prove, but maybe that's just her being in the mindset of Carrie Soto, because then you're living in that mindset where like Carrie feels that she has something to prove, but maybe that's how Taylor like accessed that. I don't know, I'm just talking nonsense now. I've not had a lot of sleep, in case that was abundantly obvious. So yeah, the book was good enough to almost make me forget about the heinous size difference. Heinous. A hate crime. Can you imagine one of my most anticipated books of the year coming a good 2 inches bigger than the rest? Honestly, a hate crime. Awful. I cannot believe that has happened to me. But, you know, we move, we live, it's fine. Taylor, I forgive you. If you've read Carrie Soto, I would love to hear where it ranks for you amongst Taylor Jenkins Reid's backlist. I think for me, it's now in 3rd place. It's like Evelyn, Daisy, Carrie, Malibu Rising, One True Loves, and maybe Another Life. That's my ranking for now, and I would love to hear what you guys think if you've already read it, or if you're gonna read it, like what are your thoughts? I would love to know, and I will see you very soon with another video soon. Bye.